Well, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? So today we're going to be doing 8th Lord in the 6th house, and what happens when the planet that controls your 8th house in your horoscope is sitting in the 6th house. And as always, if you do not know where your 8th Lord is placed in your horoscope, where your other Lord through houses are, where your planetary conjunction and aspects are, for that check out the links here and check out my full astrological report, including my books Astrology, Conjunction and Aspects at the Speed of Light. And most of you are probably wondering, what is this monster and right behind me? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my telescope. Yes, I got this telescope a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, and it was like far better than even being in Disneyland as a kid. Because last night, even though I still do not know how to work this thing, because there's a remote control right there and it's all computerized, so I still need to learn a lot of things. But last night, for the first time in my life, I actually saw Jupiter, and not just some blurred spot. I mean, Jupiter with his gas rings and everything. I saw the full moon. I saw the valleys that you only saw in NASA's photograph. I saw the valleys. Me and my wife went to the park, spent like 2-3 hours just like looking at different things. But the only thing that I could really capture, due to me not being equated with the longitude and latitudes inside in this, Jupiter and moon. But oh my God, this is going to be like my nighttime entertainment from here on out. I mean, I'm just going to be in my backyard viewing the stars, and I think this is I think it's a must to have for not just an astronomer or astronomy enthusiast, but I think for every astrology lover. Forget even astrology lover, just as a human being, it's your right to look up at the sky and look at things. But especially for an astrologer or somebody interested in astrology like me, who talks about Jupiter, Saturn, just, looking at them spinning and moving. You should see how fast Jupiter moves, because within 30 seconds, it leaves the frame. That's how fast, they're moving, because Earth is going 80,000 miles an hour. So yeah, we'll talk about this more later, but, just wanted to introduce my little friend here to you guys. So, 8th Lord in the 6th house. Well, what is the 8th house? 8th house represents death and rebirth. People's emergencies, your own emergencies, because it's a house of sudden events, sudden chaotic events even. It's a house that represents other people's assets, other people's money, your joint assets with your spouse. It represents in-laws. It represents your sexual desires or your sexual activities, because sexual activities happens, in a hidden spot, away from the world, in a dark room. Well, not for me, it's actually all lit up. But 8th house represents, digging deep for things. This is why it represents the house of occult and mysticism, because mysticism requires to go deep into this unknown world, into the dark places of the world. 8th house also represents even hauntings, being haunted by ghosts and things like that. Okay? And 8th house represents government taxes. 8th house represents being a detective, because being a detective is all about going towards the deepest, darkest things of life, looking at dead bodies and investigating things. And then what is the 6th house? Because the 8th Lord is now going to the 6th house. 6th house represents enemies, diseases, obstacles. It represents disputes, everyday work life, your everyday routine. What is your everyday routine? So, and it becomes quite important in looking at your career as well, because whenever I do a career consultation, I'm looking at the Artha houses. Number 1 is my always 2nd house, because source of earning. But if 6th house goes into the 2nd house, that becomes a source of earning majorly. But then I see their everyday routine, and the 10th house is obviously the house of ups and downs in career. But this concept of 8th Lord being in the 6th house also is a Viparit Raj Yoga, meaning that sudden positive change in your life. So we'll talk about that too a little bit. So when 8th Lord goes into the 6th house, shows that your everyday work life, your everyday routine is about handling people's emergencies. So you could be an ambulance driver, you could be a doctor, a surgeon, You could be a detective who's handling, or a policeman who's handling other people's life and death scenarios as your everyday work life. And I gotta tell you, literally like 70% of my alignments of police officers and detectives, has been with 8th Lord being in the 6th house or 8th Lord being in the 8th house, where they're content with what they're doing. And so this shows that your everyday life and routine will always involve in death, dealing with people's emergencies, ups and downs. So kind of like a mortuary, director, or somebody who cleans bodies up, can also be seen from this placement, because their everyday routine is dealing with death or dead bodies, which is 8th house. And it also represents, other people's income and assets, or government taxes. So it can also show somebody whose everyday routine is to take care of other people's assets, like a financial analyst, business analyst, accountant, things of that nature. And people usually in the financial world and dealing with wills and trusts is seen from this placement. But mainly what this shows is that, since this is creating a Vipreet Raj Yoga, is that through dealing with disputes and enemies, okay, you find sudden transformation in life. Dealing with obstacles, on everyday basis transforms your life for the better. Perhaps you, through somebody's death, by experiencing somebody else's death, you suddenly gain in life. By experiencing sudden catastrophe, you suddenly gained positive things in life. But this also shows is that your everyday work life is also dealing with enemies who are hidden from the world, which is what? Being a policeman, being an army. You're going out there searching for, your enemies, and you don't know where they're going to come from suddenly. So those are the things that are seen from this. And since this is a house of disputes, it shows that you might get into disputes with your joint assets regarding your in your marriage, or regarding with your in-laws. You may be in a lot of cahoots with your in-laws over money and assets, okay? And also regarding, wills and estates, you can get into disputes with your wife, with your husband, with your in-laws, or hidden enemies can come and try to take away your will and trust and assets. Now, depending upon what planet is controlling, 8th house and goes into the 6th house, kind of differentiate these scenarios. So let's discuss that. So let's say if Sun controls your 8th house and Sun goes into the 3rd house, what this shows is that your personality is somewhat of a person who loves helping other people in emergencies, who wants to take care of other people in emergencies, and you become very communicative about, healthcare, and very communicative about, how people are living in certain conditions. You may also work for government. Your everyday service could be of, dealing with the government's emergencies, meaning like you could be in CIA, you could be in as a police officer, which is a government person. You could be a, IAS officer in India, which is a very high prestigious government position that I'm starting to now get to learn, especially from my career consultations. And what this shows is that your personality will be always about being an authoritative figure regarding helping other people's emergencies. So usually I've seen people in government, people in like telecommunication industries with this placement, but mainly your personality is all about trying to be an authoritative figure in your everyday work life. Be like a manager, like somebody who might be into, a manager in a hospital, like general manager. And same thing with the moon. If moon goes as an 8th lord in the 6th house, shows that you want to nourish other people who are in emergency, nourish other people who are dealing with death-like scenarios. You have the mental capacity to solve other people's disputes regarding their own emergencies. So whether you are a nurse, whether you're a financial analyst, whether you are into finance, whatever it is, your mental capacity, your mental balance is so good that you feel like you should be your everyday life should be dealing with other people's mental disputes. So somebody like who might be working in hospitals, or in an asylum regarding people's mental illnesses, or you could be a nurse, you could be a doctor. especially depending upon, if it's in a Kritika Nakshatra, Rohini Nakshatra. But your everyday life will be emotionally giving yourself to people in, disputes and emergencies, and people dealing with healthcare and health emergencies. Let's say if Mercury controls your 8th house, goes into the 6th house, shows that you will be very good at managing other people's money. Your everyday life will be managing other people's assets, money. You'll be very communicative about, things related to life and death and rebirth. You can be a journalist of healthcare. You could be a writer of, health, or you could be a writer of, dramatic things that are happening in the world. And especially if, let's say, Mercury is in the 6th house, as a 8th house lord in the nakshatra of Ashwani, definitely shows somebody who has the mental capacity to become a doctor, mental capacity to become this intellectual person regarding other people's psychological problems. So you can be a psychologist with this position. You could be a psychiatrist with this position. Let's say Venus controls your 8th house. Venus goes into the 6th house. Shows that your everyday routine could be dealing with people's marriage problems, like a divorce lawyer, divorce counselor. You can be a prostitute because your everyday life is regarding sexual things, because 8th house is sexual things. Venus represents your sexual organs, sexual things, romance, love. So everyday life could revolve around those things, but mainly it can show that somebody's everyday work life, could be revolving around solving other people's marriage disputes. You can be a person who loves to solve other people's, or in your own family or your husband or wife's family, solving disputes. You're always stuck into this thing. So it's not the best position, but it's like it'll become your life's work and passion, to deal with everyday people's sexual problems, everyday people, money, or even health problems with this kind of a Venus. But mainly it's always inclined towards relationships. So divorce lawyers can really be seen from these positions, or somebody again who might be, in things related to sexual things, whether you're a doctor who takes care of other people's sexual problems, or you could be, in a business of escort or something like that. Let's say if Mars controls your 8th house. Mars goes into the 6th house, shows that you can be a detective. You can be in criminology, CSI. You can make a soldier. You can make any kind of a government agent. Fighters, athletes are seen from this because it requires inner strength. You dig deep for inner strength and bring it out. And especially with this position of Mars, shows that somebody whose everyday routine could be of being a mining engineer, civil engineer, somebody who might be working into oil fields, mining fields. So because Mars is a natural engineer, Mars is a natural weaponry master. So all of these things can be represented by that. But here, this is a very powerful position for somebody who can really be a great, secret agent or a detective. Mars has a very strong willpower to deal with other people's emergencies. So like if you're especially like ambulance driver who have to just get to the scene, look at some of the most, grotesque things and deal with them. You need a Martian thing, not a moon or Venus thing. You need that inner strength of Mars. So any kind of those fields become good with this kind of a Mars. Saturn controls your 8th house, goes into the 6th house. Somebody can be a surgeon. Somebody can be in the medical field, doctor. Somebody whose everyday life and routine is to deal with other people's death, deal with other people's, or deal with dead bodies. Because Saturn is a karka of the 8th house. 6th house of disease and obstacles. Can definitely signify somebody who is in the medical field. Somebody who can everyday life could be all about being a tantric master. Somebody's everyday life could be about being an occultist, because it's everyday routine. Saturn loves routine. When it rules the 8th house, goes into the 6th house, can represent the thing, but mainly on a common basis. You're not going to find everyday people, being witchcraft and astrologer and tarot card reader. But with this position, definitely a government service. Like a tax officer, somebody who might be into dealing the financial side of the government. Treasury officer is seen from this. If Jupiter controls your, 8th house, I should have done that before. If Jupiter controls your 8th house, goes into the 6th house, shows that your everyday routine could be teaching and advising people regarding their, medical emergencies, regarding their assets and, their money, because Jupiter is a significator of finance. Here, Jupiter can make a great accountant, great business analyst, great, debt collector, somebody who is able to manage other people's finance, because besides Mercury, Jupiter also plays that role of a money and financial manager. You can be a teacher of you can be a teacher in any field that is relating to death and rebirth, meaning that you could be a biology teacher, you could be a teacher that shows how to dissect bodies. You have the knowledge and capacity of dealing with these things in your everyday life. And this also shows that your everyday life, because of the fact it's dealing with very dark and demented scenarios, shows that you could be somebody who might be in a counseling field, somebody who's a psychologist, psychiatrist, somebody whose everyday life is to solve other people's disputes, like a marriage counselor, divorce attorneys. So it's kind of similar pattern with Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter here. But you always have to look at the sign placement, who is aspecting and conjuncts them. So instead of being a divorce lawyer, Jupiter might become an accountant. But it shows that your knowledge is not gained on in an institution or school. Your knowledge is gained on the streets with this Jupiter especially. So you can be a drug dealer, a gangster. You could be somebody out in the ghettos and living the life and just know how to wheel and deal the money with people. So Mercury and Jupiter can actually provide that kind of a knowledge. Your knowledge doesn't come from this institution. It's about dealing with enemies every day. So in a way, this can be a very powerful Jupiter, where somebody who has the knack to go out in streets and make the quick money, like a hustler. Okay. So guys, this was my analysis of 8th Lord in the 6th house. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And again, if you want to know where your 8th Lord is placed and all the other planets, including all the secrets of astrology, for that, check out the links here, and especially my option 6 on my shop section if you're new to astrology. Otherwise, we'll see you next time with 8th Lord in the 7th house. Bye-bye.